All right, all right. What's happening, everybody? Guess what? It's another episode of Behind the Visual, where I interview those people responsible for all the images and videos you see out in your world every single day. And I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer, Mark Hansen. And today, my guest is media personality, an amazing woman, Barbara McKay. Lots of fun to talk to, lots of really cool stories. Has a new book out. Go to barbaramckay.com to get it. It's full of over 100 recipes, plus almost or maybe just as many stories from her life, which we talk a lot about in this podcast. And they're really interesting, including one where she went to a Charlotte Hornets NBA basketball game, sat beside a man who had just sang the national anthem, told him she would help him out if she could, because she figured he must be good if he was singing that, asked him to watch her bag and her coat while her and her son went down and hung out with friends for the whole second half of the game, forgot he was up there. After the game was over, turned around, most people left. He's still standing there with her bag and her coat, waiting on her to come. She got up there, apologized, found out later this man was hosting the Country Music Awards, and he was a very popular country artist. So check that out for that one. We also talk about the time she met Elvis, Oscar de la Renta, how her and her became friends, how she found out she was related to Princess Diana and Princess Diana's brother, of course, and how her and Diana's brother have become good friends, and not only that, cousins. So yeah, there are a lot of really cool stories in here. It was a lot of fun talking to Barbara, and she talks about her attitude of gratitude, which keeps her, I mean, she's got a ton of energy, and I think you guys are really going to like this one. The stories are just great. So definitely check this out. Check out the book, barbaramckay.com. That's MCKAY. And I'm sure you hopefully you know how to spell Barbara. And let me know what you think about this episode. Thumbs up it, like it, subscribe, all the other stuff you can do to it, comment on it, that kind of thing. And I look forward to hearing what you guys think. I think you're going to like this one. So tell me, first of all, did you grow up in North Carolina? Where did you grow up?
I was born in a tiny, tiny little community outside the big city of Shelby. Big city.
So you were born outside of
I was born in the country. I was born in the absolute country outside of Shelby. Shelby's not big, but truthfully, Mark, I am so grateful for my small town roots in North Carolina. It made me who I am, and I am so thankful that I had that experience. Yes,
I like the country. My father-in-law has a 90-acre farm out in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina, and that's where my wife grew up. And
so
I think it's cool. Yeah.
And that's where I started my love of food. It was farm to table. That's what which is so popular now, but that's how I lived, farm to table. And then when we moved into town, tiny little Shelby, when we moved into town, my daddy had this he bought an extra lot so we could have this gigantic garden. And I still hear from people who tell me about how much they loved my daddy's garden.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it was always farm to table. We ate organically before people knew what that meant.
Yes. Yeah, as it should be, I think. Because even the organic stuff, I learned, we went picking apples 2 weekends ago up in near Linville, someplace.
Yeah.
And the guy was explaining apples, and he said, even all those apples you see at the store, he said, those are all grown to be the same size, same look, whatever. He said, even the organic ones, he said, if they don't have a bunch of little spots on them, those aren't real apples. Those aren't, natural. And we just bought some organic apples from the store today because we finally ate all those apples. And I was looking, I was like, you're right. There are hardly any spots on any of these apples. And now I'm thinking, what are they doing to these apples?
That's right.
To keep them so smooth and pretty.
Another garden story is that my daddy, part of the reason that food was so good is that we ate it as soon as it came from the garden. And my daddy used to tell me, I loved Silver Queen corn. And my daddy used to say, okay, go get the Silver Queen corn and you can stroll up there, but you run back as fast as you can as soon as you pick it. And if you fall down, you just throw that away and go back and get more. So as soon as you could get it into the pan, that's how we enjoyed our food. And it was wonderful. And as I say in the book, my love of food is what took me on this amazing journey from that small little farm and town in Western North Carolina to being very blessed to go all around the world doing stories and meeting amazing people. So it all started because I loved food.
That's crazy. So how did you, okay, so yeah, how did you get into TV, film, all that? How did you get into the whole thing?
Okay, that's another interesting story. I always love TV. When you live in small towns and rural areas, everybody on TV is your friend. Right. And my friends, I spent a lot of time by myself and my imagination. And my friends were on TV. I loved Lucille Ball. I especially loved the Mouseketeers. I always wanted to be a Mouseketeer, but they were not doing talent searches in rural Cleveland County.
Yeah.
So, and it's long story short, I love television. I made it to Charlotte by way of Chapel Hill, and I was home with my baby girl, which was a miracle. I have a lot of miracle stories, which have also had such an impact on my life in the book. But I was home with my baby girl, and my mother came over from Shelby, and she walked in the door and she looked at me and she said, "You look terrible. You need to do something with yourself. You need to get out and do something." And TV was on, of course. And she looked at the TV and she said, "That's what you could do right there." Well, I had never told her I would have loved to have been on TV. I never thought that was a possibility because when I was growing up, you had three choices. You could be a nurse, or you could be a teacher, or you could be a flight attendant. And I did two of those.
Did you? Which two?
I did. I was a teacher and I was also a flight attendant. I was a flight attendant first and then a teacher. But my mother then said, "You need to do TV." So she opened up the phone book. At that time, we had phone books. Yep. She opened up the phone book and took her finger, went down, said, "There it is, WBTV," which happened to be the largest, one of the most respected TV stations in the country.
I was going to ask why she picked WBTV over the other.
Well, that was what was on my TV.
Okay. Well,
there you go. They were the ones, everybody in Cleveland County, we grew up watching WBTV. Yeah. That was the local station. So she convinced me to call them. She didn't convince me, she made me call them. I was an obedient child. And I did, and they gave me an interview. And after the interview, Anna Ruffty was the person who did it. She called the producer of Top of the Day. Her name was Kathy. And Kathy told me the rest of the story later. She said that Anna called her and told her she needed to see me. And she asked her what size market, how many TV shows I had been on, how many I had hosted, And Anna said, "Well, she's never done TV before." And Kathy said, I don't look at people who just walk in off the street. And Anna said, "Well, I think maybe you should look at this one." So I did an audition, Mark, and it was just horrible. It was awful. It was so awful that I did not watch TV for 6 weeks. I punished myself. I did not tell anyone that I had done that. No one knew that but my mother. Well, about 6 weeks later, I got this letter in the mail and I was afraid to open it. I thought it probably said things like, "Don't ever come here." But it said, that was not very good, but we think there might be some potential. So thanks to WBTV, they took me back and they basically trained me on the job. And for that reason, I have a lot of very embarrassing stories that could be volume 2 of this book. but they let me learn on the job. And I ended up doing 7 shows there and regional shows and national shows and traveling around the world and meeting all kinds of famous people and royalty. And
wow.
I am thankful every day to my mom who said, "You look terrible and you need to do something for yourself."
Yeah, which you
Kind
wouldn't
of a
think that
long
would
story.
really go together. Like, hey, you look terrible. You should be on TV. That
My,
doesn't really sound like it would
my mother
be,
was visionary.
obviously. Yes. God.
No, she just loved me and thought I could do better than I was doing at that moment.
And most, I would think now anyway, the possibility of getting on TV by just cold calling somebody is pretty much zero.
True. I would not be able to get a job if I tried it today. So, but at that time, and then again, you probably realized from reading my book, it's all about faith too. I will count that as one of my miracles that I ended up on TV. I had all kinds of miracles, and I learned about miracles from an early age when something happened in my family when I was about 9.
Yeah.
And I saw what a real miracle looked like. And that affected my life from there on, from 9 years until now. I just rely on my faith. So when
Okay. Well,
somebody,
what was that?
what was the
What was the
incident?
miracle?
Okay, I was 9 years old. I'll try not to be as long with this, and
That's
people can
fine.
read fill in the blanks in the book. But I was
Yeah.
9 years old, and my little brother was on his bicycle, and he was in the street on the side, and a truck hit him going very, very fast. He was on the inside of a curve. And he was on a busy street, and my parents were told there was no way he could live.
Oh,
Absolutely no
wow.
way he could make it through the night. And our church and our family and our friends began to pray. So the next morning, he was still there. And that went on for over 30 days of every night. They said, he cannot make it through the night. And then when they saw that he was some improvement, they said, okay, he might wake up, but he will be, as they use the term, a vegetable. They
Right.
said he will not be able to do anything. Fast forward, he woke up. He did have to learn to walk and talk and everything. He started at age 7 all over again as an
Wow.
infant. We went all the way through school and college with double vision until Duke found a way to correct the double vision.
Really?
Now, in fact, he has a book that just came out. We did not know that we were each writing a book, and he's over in Shelby, and he has become extraordinarily successful in Shelby as a businessman and has done amazing things for this town. That it's a very cruel time for little boys and then teenagers and then young men when they are having all kinds of physical difficulties. And
Yeah.
people were very cruel. Well, now some of those people who were very cruel thank him every day
Yeah.
because he's done so much and has been so generous. He's on the city council there and has restored so many buildings all throughout Shelby,
Oh, wow.
and they love him there and respect him, and he is totally well. And so there was the first miracle. So I saw that, and when you're 9 years old, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's what God says. It's not what these people tell me. And then I've had several things. I was told I could never have children ever. I have 2. I was told I had another accident and lacerated my face and said, uh-oh. And I was healed from that. So there are several. Some of the miracles are huge, and I write about them. And some of them are what I called God winks. And I think the TV thing was a God wink. It was like, yes, you can. Yes, you can do this. You can do this. And so that's a lot of the book. The main part of the book, and people need to know this, is the food thing, is that I have the best recipes, and I had thousands that I had done on TV and other media. And so I chose the very best ones, the most popular, the ones that everybody from friends to TV people said, this is so delicious. So I put my most favorite recipes. And the other criteria was that they should be made as quickly as possible. So most of them can be made in 30 minutes or less.
That's nice.
And they use ingredients that you can easily find. And for people on special diets, most of them can have substitutes that would make it work for them. So that was my criteria. So I ended up with 127.
I was gonna say, how many out of 1,000 or more? How many did you
Oh, it was
come up with?
thousands. It was more than 1,000. It was thousands because I did. In fact, I'm going back to do TV again in a couple of weeks. But when you do TV for 40 years, and a lot of it is food, you have a lot of recipes. And I'm
So
thankful.
with the TV you're going back to do, is that going to be a one-off thing, or is it going?
Yes, it is. Okay. I do guest things now.
Nice.
And as much as I loved doing early morning and then midday and then a radio show and then a nighttime show,
you know what?
I look back now and say, how did I live like that with 2 little children? But it was fun.
It just hit me. I ran camera for you one time.
You did?
Yeah, because I was working at WBTV right out of college, and I was working the morning show. And I had one time where I stayed over after they had me stay longer, and I went over to the other studio where your kitchen was set up.
Yeah.
And shot that segment with you doing whatever you were doing at the kitchen at the time. I don't remember the whole thing, but I do remember being in there running the camera. And it just hit me right then when you said something there. You just said it hit me.
Okay. 2 things about that, Mark. It's really interesting throughout the book. I tell people, look for signs. There are signs that, and see, we met that day and here we are again. And you did the amazing photography in my book. And then there's another story in my book where I met Elvis when I was about 10.
Really?
And then I ended up 30 years later doing a movie. I was interviewing the movie stars for Memphis Belle in Memphis, and I went back to Graceland. I met him in his yard at Graceland. The story is in the book.
Was that when you could drive? My dad said you used to be able to drive up the driveway
at
Graceland and just like wave to whoever's sitting out front or whatever.
Well, his Uncle Vester was at the gate, and my father, the garden growing man, knew no strangers, and he just pulled up the gate, and he and Uncle Vester just had this long, like good old boy chat, and he invited us in. We were there for a couple of hours. Elvis was there. Elvis came around, said hey, and he was riding on his motorcycle, and I kept thinking, why is this man, why is this boy allowed to ride his motorcycle on the grass? And then I realized it was his grass and he could do whatever he wanted to on his grass. And it was Elvis, who was actually probably in his young 20s at that time. And we just hung out for a couple of hours. And then when I went back for Memphis Belle, Graceland was a completely different place. Yeah. It was a tourist attraction with trams running around it and a gift shop. And there in the gift shop was a cookbook by Uncle Vester, who had let us in.
Really?
And then I thought, out of respect for Uncle Vester, I should not just do one of his recipes on the show without asking him. And he had passed away. So about several years after that, I was interviewing Priscilla for Naked Gun.
Oh, wow.
And I told her the story. And she said, would you like to have one of the very best recipes we have? And I said, yes, I would. And it was the Elvis Presley pound cake. And that's what's in the book. So you see these signs, there's order out there.
Yeah.
And they just keep recurring. And then one more thought about what you said about being in the kitchen for the morning show. You probably would have remembered if it had been the day that I set the kitchen on fire.
Yeah, I went there for that day. I remember that.
A fireball in the kitchen. And was worried that I would never be back there again, but they forgave me.
Well, that's good of them. Yes. I'm sure they did, because I think you were extremely popular. And
well, you were kind.
I know you were.
Fireball. Exciting live TV.
I was gonna say that happened live on the air.
It did.
That's amazing.
It did. Yes.
Oh my God. So out of the celebrities you've interviewed, who would be your favorite celebrity interview?
That's a hard question. I will back up by saying I loved the movie stars and they were so much fun. But as it turns out, my very favorite to interview were the fashion designers. I had a passion for fashion from the time I was about 6. And so whenever I got to interview the fashion designers, I loved that so much. Though I had a wonderful time, and I have lots of stories in the book about all the movie stars that I interviewed, and it was wonderful. There's a long story about Debbie Reynolds, and I'm not sure if people today even remember Debbie Reynolds, but that was a real treat for me. I love, she ended up spending the day with me.
Oh, wow.
And I thought she was going to just hop in her limo with her entourage and go back. And she ended up staying and just spent the afternoon chatting with me. And I was so amazed by that. I loved her. To me, she was Tammy in The Bachelor, which is a movie I saw as a child. And her love interest in Tammy and The Bachelor was Leslie Nielsen, who went on to do Naked Gun, and he was so much fun. I interviewed him in California, and then he came to Charlotte, and he was hilarious. He was as funny as his movies, The Naked Gun. And then the fashion designers, Oscar de la Renta, who was like a prince, and those who know of him know that he is like a prince. He was such an amazing and wonderful and talented man, and he dressed royalty, and he was beloved by not only the people who admired his clothes, but also by the people in the industry. And so when he came to the studio to do a fashion show first, we did those early in the morning because we had models. I assumed that he would just take off as soon as we finished the fashion show. And I was telling him, thank you so much, Mr. De La Renta. This was just such a thrill for me. And I said, we'll air the fashion show during my live show, which was a couple of hours from then. He said, oh, I can stay. And so he stayed a couple more hours and did the live show. And I said, thank you so much. I mean, this was just wonderful. And now I have to race off and do radio. And he said, you do radio? And I said, yes, from 1 to 3. And he said, I can do that. And
wow.
And then I said, well, I'm hungry and I need the energy to do that show. So I'm just going to run, grab a pimento cheese sandwich from the cafeteria. And he said, I can do that. And so we sat and shared a pimento cheese sandwich and then went down and did radio. So he was with me from about 8 in the morning until about 4 in the afternoon. And it was a thrill. I was so thrilled. He did not have to do that, but
that's amazing.
I've been very fortunate to have some special people in my life.
I think there are very few people of that level of fame nowadays anyway who would say, oh, I can stick around for a little bit longer, I can stick around longer. They'd all be like, no, I'm sorry, I gotta go do this, or I gotta go do that, or gotta something for Instagram is calling me, or whatever it is. Yes, that's unbelievable.
I just wouldn't want to spend the time with somebody that really didn't make that much of a difference in his life. And I was so touched by that. And he was extraordinary. In fact, I ran into him in New York. Actually, I didn't even run into him. I was on the other side of the street, and I saw this man waving his arms across the street, and it was Oscar de la Renta. So he even remembered, which tells you even more about it, how thoughtful he is. He even remembered when I was out of context. I was not in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was in New York, and he was so kind. And I had lunch with him just before he died. And so I was, in Atlanta. And I was just so honored that I got to do that. So so I love the fashion designers. There are many more. There are many that I'm friends with today that I just love. And I admire fashion designers so much because they work hard. They work so hard and are so involved in everything. That's
a hard business to make money
in. It is. So I admire them. But again, there's so many people that I've had the chance to get to know. And again, it all started because of my love of food.
So is your love of food, you obviously have a love of fashion. So is it love of food, then fashion? Or are they close together?
I think so, because food opened the doors to the fashion.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes. And my other love is furry friends. I do love, and my faith, of course. My faith got me through all this. As I say, food took me on this journey, but my faith got me through it. And then I'm a real animal advocate. So I do a lot of volunteer work for my animals. And
that's good.
Them. Yeah.
They have animals?
I do.
How many?
I have 2 right now. I write about them in the book, and there were some little miracles that went along with them. But I had a cat named Musha Prada, of course.
Of course.
And there's stories about her, and then lots of animals. I grew up with dogs, And then as I started all this busyness in my life, I realized that cats kind of take care of themselves.
Yes.
So I have cats now, but I can't wait to have a precious dog like yours. Your dog is so cute.
But unlike the cats, I can't just leave her and go away for the weekend.
Right. Oh, my cats are, yes, they are very self-sufficient.
Yes. That's the good thing about, I had a makeup artist that had a cat, and we would go out of town for 2, 3, 4 days, and he would just leave. He had a feeder that automatically fed it in his large box, and he would just say, all right, we're off, and he would take off, and the cat was fine while he was gone. My dog, you can hardly leave for the day, and she comes back and she starts whining when you come in the door, like, I missed you, where have you been all day? Yeah. So it makes you feel bad.
Mark, I'm not sure we talked about your talent, because I'm not sure you were recording this when I was saying how grateful I am to you. You really, really captured me. And that was the thing that I don't know that people realize with photographers. First of all, the subject needs to be very, very comfortable. And you really captured me because you made it so easy and so fun. And I am so happy that you love Charlotte, because you could do this anywhere in the world. And you do go around the world doing it. But I'm glad on that day in March, when you did the photography for my book cover and front and back and throughout, that you were in Charlotte that day. I will always be grateful.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love it. We had discussed moving to New York, but it was when my daughter was little. And then I looked at the prices to live in New York and have a house. And I was like, no, we'll stay in Charlotte.
I'm glad.
Yeah. And I'm glad. So glad. Yeah. I'm
you needed to be here. There's another God wink. You nehad to be here. I needed you. All these decades later, I needed you.
Oh, that worked out. Yeah. Cause I was just in New York, and I've had lunch with some friends, and I was supposed to have dinner with a couple of friends, but they thought it was going to storm and they backed out. And I was thinking, I'm glad I don't live here. I'm good coming here to work, but I am glad I did not decide to move up here. I don't think I could have taken it.
I had that blessing too, in that I went to New York and to LA every month. Mm-hmm. And I was so happy to get home to the South and my town, my city. But it's fun to visit. It is fun.
Oh yeah, it's great.
They have wonderful things to entertain us there and to make it special, and lots of food, lots of great food. Mm-hmm. But we have that here, and it's a lot easier to live here.
Oh yeah. Well, I think my mortgage is what my friend was paying on his. It was a doorman building. So he had a doorman, he had a little patio out front, but it was basically a loft. And where they had built a little wall so they could have a bedroom, but he was paying the same amount as my mortgage for maybe 800 square feet, maybe.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe not even that much, actually. Probably more like 600 or 700 square feet. I was like,
I think people are discovering that they can come here and have, imagine for what they're paying.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's done wonders for my, the value of my home.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I just had that conversation yesterday. Yeah. We're glad
at this rate. I mean, we've only been in this house. So 4 years. We've been in this house 4 years. Probably at this rate, another 2, it will have doubled in price.
Yeah.
If it keeps going like it is.
Maybe you need to buy another one.
Yeah, no. Except for that, we had discussed that. But then again, everything else is so like my neighbors next door paid it was the house on the market for 1 day, and they paid 40 grand over asking.
Yeah.
And
it's right. Seller's market. You need to just stay where you are and be glad.
I had a friend of mine put a bid on a little cabin in the woods up in California that they wanted. And I think he was going to offer 100 over, and he didn't get it.
Yeah.
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 That's crazy.
We'll just enjoy what we have. Yeah. Be thankful we have it. Yeah.
Exactly. I am all good with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So was your first time on television, WBTV?
It was. And I was not good.
Had you done anything before?
Excuse me?
Is that just your natural personality, or had you?
No.
Like, did you model before? Were you in plays? Were you in, something like that in school or something?
I did do plays.
Okay.
I did do plays, and I did model as a child.
Okay.
So I liked
it helped a little bit. So you had a little bit of
I liked that
in front of people.
My only other television appearance is that I danced on TV when I was 4.
Okay.
That was different from Top of the Day. It was a different experience. But no, I did, I loved television.
Yeah.
And when you watch it, and especially shows like Disney shows that I grew up watching, I could see that people could make a career out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think that was possible, but somehow my mom did. And that's how
Which is great.
happened. I know. I'm glad she did. I'm glad she had that confidence in me. I
think
do have
we
some
all
funny
are.
stories of leading up to that. My little time with the airlines, and then so we won't go into that now. But there's a funny story about that.
You can
Well,
tell
it's true
that. You
story.
can talk about that.
Can I talk about that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I left right after Chapel Hill. I decided that.
So you went to UNC Chapel Hill.
I did. I went to UNC.
That's
Chapel
where my daughter
Hill.
is now.
I was an education major. Yeah, I was an education major.
Yeah.
And I knew that I would probably eventually teach. Again, we had about 3 options, and that was a nurse, and I couldn't stand blood, the sight of it. And I said, we knew that wouldn't work out. And then flight attendant. So I went ahead and tried that, and teacher, of course, and I had my teacher's certificate. So I thought, I will try, I'm going to do this. So I took off to Miami, which was very different from Shelby, for my training. And probably one of the most memorable parts of that for me is that they would weigh us and measure us every day. And
every day?
Every day. Oh, every day. And they decided that my hips were an inch too big for the rest of me.
At what day did they figure this out? That
they were early on, they decided that my hips needed to be reduced by an inch. So I suffered. I mean, I exercised. I did everything they told me to do. I starved myself. I mean, they told me I couldn't fly because my bottom was 1 inch bigger than it ought to be. And by the way, I weighed 115 pounds. So I didn't know what else I could do. So they brought in this expert from Harper's Bazaar magazine in New York. They flew her down to Miami to look at all of us and advise us. And when she got to me, she said, wait a minute, this girl can't help it. This girl is all bone here. She can't lose. She is just built an inch too big in her bottom. So you're going to have to excuse her and let her go ahead and have her wings. So I did. But I want you to know, and this is where it's so different now. Randomly, at least once a week, I would be called into the crew lounge and measured with a tape measure to make sure that
it didn't get any bigger.
Didn't get any bigger. And again, I weighed 115 pounds. That would not, no pun intended, fly today. So yeah, I still kind of cringe when I see a tape measure because I did that for a year and then decided I didn't. Well, actually, I was engaged to be married. So I decided to leave the airline industry. They offered to just relocate me, but I said, no, I think enough tape measuring. I think I'll go back to teaching. Yes. So then I taught for a very short time and then got into television.
Wow.
Thanks to my mom.
Yeah, I used to work in a modeling agency, and we had a model who was unbelievable, tall, thin. Her hips were an inch too big for most agencies, and it was bone.
Yeah.
And there was nothing she could do about it. And literally she did not go any further than like a regional thing because the national agencies would not take her because of that extra inch on her hips.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So I was not alone during that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
But I was so humiliated when everybody would trance out and I would be told I have to stay and I have to work and I have to, because my inch was preventing me from flying on an airplane at 115 pounds.
Yeah, that's
changed.
That's trauma right there.
I know.
They do that now. There's a major lawsuit going on if somebody did that now.
I was so ashamed. I wonder if it's too late.
God. Yeah, I can't imagine your hips ever being an inch too big for anything.
Thank you. They were. They still are.
Their 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 guidelines must have been extremely strict and very tiny.
Very, very, very strict. One time during the holidays, I had a little breakout on my chin. I had a little bump on my chin. And so they grounded me for 2 weeks until that got well. Yes. Yes. Yeah. It was a different time.
It was totally a different time.
It was, yes. Yeah. So yes, I left there a little bit bruised.
I bet you did.
My ego a little bit bruised.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think
I bet that destroyed a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. But they were really nice people. So I thought, well, I must be really I must be really bad. So because they were all so nice that they had to tell me that I just did not measure up. Literally did not measure up.
That's crazy. Yeah. So you left that, went on, got married, did the teaching thing, got on TV.
Yeah. Well, yes, I did. And had my miracle babies. Again, I was told I could never have children. And when I became pregnant with Elizabeth, they told me, they sat me down and said, we don't know how you could possibly have gotten pregnant with your issues. And please don't get too excited because we can't see how you could possibly give birth. So
you say, I got extra inch in my hip, so I've got room in there. So we're going to be okay. Don't you worry about it.
Right. I should have told them that. That's my best answer. But I delivered a precious baby girl, and that's the one that I was rocking when my mother came in and said, "Oh, you look bad." And then I had another miracle just out of the blue, and Michael was born almost on TV.
Really?
Almost on TV. I worked right up until time for him to come into the world.
Wow.
Yes.
How long were you out?
Oh, that's another interesting thing. Now they take like 4 months. You get
they take forever now.
And I was back in action in 2 weeks.
Really?
2 weeks, yes. I had him with me in his little basket. I have a picture.
Did you have him on the air?
He was on the air. Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what's he do now? You told me what he does, but I can't remember.
He is a chief officer at Bloomin' Brands, which is the parent company for all the Outback Steakhouses and Carrabba's and Bonefish Grill. There's a picture of me in the book making a bloomin' onion.
Those things are good.
Aren't they good?
Yeah.
I made
calories are out of control though.
You don't want to know. I tell you what's interesting about that, Mark, is that for the bloomin' onion, he took me back in the kitchen of Outback, and the first thing you do is you use this huge cutter that cuts the onion in the shape that you need to do the bloomin' onion. But the interesting thing is that not one single person knows the recipe.
Really?
There are about 4 people who have different parts of the recipe, and they contribute their parts.
Right.
And so they send out to all the restaurants the mixture that they put the onions in to have that wonderful crusty flavor. And so I went through the whole process, and there's a picture of me. I was so excited about that onion. I was so proud of myself with that onion.
Yeah.
So that's they're known for that, and with good reason. They're so good.
Have gone there this week. I got stuck in Dallas on Saturday, so my flight was canceled. Middle of my shoot, I find out, so that kind of distracted me for about half an hour.
Of course,
but I should have gone. There was an Outback down the street. I should have gone there.
You should have.
Yeah,
you
got that bloomin' onion.
They have some really good things besides the onion too.
Yeah, I like Outback.
Yeah.
It was a little farther walk than where I ended up going, and I'm not even going to tell you where I went going because I'm embarrassed to say it. So,
come on,
yeah, it was. So I should have gone to Outback because it was literally between where I went and Outback, and I thought, well, Outback's a little farther away. I'm exhausted. I'm just going to walk across the parking lot and hit this place, and if I had to do it over again, I would do Outback.
Good. Well, I'm glad. And I can tell you that the food is good and the people who run it are just wonderful.
My wife used to be a waitress at Outback for a while. She was my wife was a waitress at Outback for a little when we first got married.
See, there's another connection.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
So I remember her telling me that she would sit down. It's like when they would let them sit down beside you. I don't know if they still do or not. Last few times we've been there, they didn't sit down with us, but she would sit down and take everybody's order.
I love
And
that.
he
It's
had
a nice
some
friendly
guys request her
place.
for their section because I guess they want her to sit beside them or
Yeah.
something.
She was very good. Well, she was very good. And I'm sure they liked having her join them at the table.
I'm guessing
But
so.
it's a good company, and they have held on to their traditions and serve people well. It's a very family oriented company.
Oh, that's
They
nice.
take care of their employees. Yes, it's a good place.
I heard that the guys who started it hadn't even been to Australia when they started it.
No, they just thought that was a nice
Yeah,
concept. Nice idea.
it was.
And they were right.
Oh yeah, they were
They
absolutely
were
right.
right.
Yeah, it was amazing. So how long, what did you, okay, at what point did you decide enough with the TV? I'm going to back off a little bit and kind of take some time for myself. Did
Okay,
that come yet?
this is a very well, I'm still doing it,
Yeah.
but the daily part, this is kind of a poignant story, and nobody knew this story until my book came out. So here you go. Uh, I was there for decades, and one day, the my day consisted of I would go in sometimes for the early morning show, and then go home and get my children ready for school, and then go back and do the rest of my day until it was time for school to be out, and then I would go see them. So it was, I loved my job. I loved my job, loved the people, loved the company. And I got a call one afternoon about 5 o'clock, and management said, could we see you tomorrow morning about 9? And I said, well, I have tapes to do. I would pre-tape a lot of segments if there were people who were coming through town and could only be there that day, and we would tape it, and then I would do the show live. And I said, well, I have some tapes to do at 9. And they said, well, could you come in at 8? And I said, I'll be glad to, I'll be there. I had no idea what the message was going to be. So I got there at 8 o'clock, knowing I had to rush downstairs at 9 and do tapes. And the message was, we're going to all news, so we don't really need you anymore. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was so sad and just fighting back tears as I went down and had to do the rest of my day and do the show live and still
Had they
be
already changed the name? Because I remember when they went to WBTV News.
Right.
I was
They were
there,
in
I
the
think, about the time they
process
did
of
that.
doing that. Yes,
Okay.
they were in the process of doing that. And truthfully, Mark, so I want to jump in here very quickly with
Yeah, go
this
ahead.
to say, I was never mad. I was never bitter. I was just sad. And I
Yeah.
could never, ever be bitter or mad, because this is the place that gave me this incredible opportunity, taught me how to do TV. And because of them, I got to go on to do TV all over the country and do magazines and do books. And I had a wonderful life that they launched. But at that moment, I was very, very sad. And
Yeah.
so I kept that. They never announced, they just announced that I was leaving. But they never announced why I was
They didn't say
leaving.
why.
But I respect and love them so much. I also understood what they had to do. This is a time when news, and you can see now there are nothing but news cable stations out there everywhere. So they had to go with what the audience was wanting. And I was sad to go. I was sad that they had to make that decision. But they did. And I just thanked them. I was grateful. I was grateful to have been there for 23 years at that point. And then interestingly, I continued on there, just not every day. I continued working there for 10 more years. After that ended, I would do specials, and I would do commercials, and I would do guest things. I just didn't have my daily shows anymore.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I saw on LinkedIn you were the EVP?
EVP? Yes.
Of Studio South Holdings.
Yes.
What exactly is Studio South Holdings?
Okay, we in North Carolina had a really great thing going on with the film industry. We had amazing incentives.
So a certain mayor became governor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our state was known for being the perfect place to make movies, because we had the right climate, we had the right scenery, we had mountains, we had the beach, we had wonderful people and amazing labor force. We had talented people in front of and behind the scenes. I can't say enough about the talent located in North Carolina. So a business partner and I decided that we should turn Eastland Mall, right in the center of Charlotte,
that was you?
Studio. That was me.
Okay.
That was me. And then the city decided that no, that's not what they wanted. And the state decided, and maybe this had some sort of part in the decision making of the city when they said we don't want a movie studio there. The incentives went away, and they went to Georgia.
Well, that probably worked out then for you, because if
they
started a studio and then the incentives went away, that would have been harsh.
You're exactly right. We would have been left with some concrete sitting there and no film incentives. But the studio continues on. I'm still a part of it, but I'm busy doing my book and doing other TV things, but I'm still very much a part of it. They're in Greenville now, Global Studios in Greenville, and we have a lot of movies. We like the idea of making movies that make a difference, movies that matter. We have some very, very meaningful movies slated that we hope to get started on that will make a difference, a positive difference in this world, and tell the true story of a lot of things that make a difference.
Why is Greenville? I just saw maybe about 3 weeks ago, there's some production company out of LA moving to Greenville.
Yes. Greenville's a really, and
I was like, how did Greenville become a spot to put a production company and studios?
It's South Carolina is really good at business. They are thank you, Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
They are very, very good at business. So we realized this was a great place to do business.
I like Greenville.
Greenville's a wonderful city. It is a wonderful city. And it's a city that also has a great talent group. They are also right there at the mountains, and they have the beaches, and they have some incentives. They're not like Georgia's, but there are some good ones there. So we relocated there, and Studio South continues on. We can make movies, but we also own a lot of movie properties, and those are properties meaning the movie rights to some very special movies. So
that's good.
Again, I didn't check with my business partner to see if I can talk about those. I'm not sure what's involved in the contracts, but trust me, they're good movies that and now Mark, what people need, they need content. They really need content with all of the Netflix and Hulu's and Apple's and all of the TV sources right now for streaming as well as mainstream. So they need content, and we're there to please them.
That's good.
Yes, it is.
That's very good. So at what point did you decide, I've got enough recipes, I've got enough cool stories, I need to write a book?
Good question. I didn't. My children did. Children, yes, said they have been begging me these stories that they have heard growing up, and they said, you need to write a book. I mean, there's some really, really funny things, some poignant things, some interesting things. They said, this needs to be a book. And I said, I don't know. I kept dragging my feet, and COVID hit. And when you read my book, you realize that I'm one of these Pollyanna people. It's like, I'm going to make the best of whatever it is. Whatever is going on, I'm going to find the silver lining. And that makes for a very happy life, by the way. Look for that silver lining.
Good.
And so what I did during COVID, I wrote a book, and it just came out, and I'm very excited about it. So it has those stories. It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook because I wanted a book that is affordable, but I wanted it to be beautiful, like a coffee table book, and I wanted it to be useful. So I combined all of those things. So it's a great $30 gift that people will use.
Oh, that's a good price
forever.
too.
Yeah, it's especially with your photography in there. Beautiful. Your photography. Yeah.
Just for the photography alone, it's worth the $30. Just for the cover and the back.
I have a friend who sent me a message after she received your book, and she said, oh my goodness, I did not know that it was going to look like this. I need to buy a new coffee table worthy of this one.
And just to clarify for anybody, I did not shoot the food pictures inside. So please do not call me to shoot food, because I don't shoot food.
No, you just made me look the best I could possibly look. I don't know how you did that.
It's not hard. You were so easy to shoot. And
oh, you were kind.
Let's talk about that. We'll get back to the book in a second.
Okay.
What's your fitness routine or whatever? Because you are in amazing shape and an amazing energy, and it's all just unbelievable. I mean, there's got to be something you were doing daily, weekly, something, because I don't know that I have your energy.
Oh, you were kind.
I don't actually.
We won't go to the number, but I've been around a long time, and I have seen a very, very big old birthday. A lot of that is your attitude. And again, I know I sound like Pollyanna, but I am living, walking proof of this. I keep an attitude of gratitude. Whatever is going on, I will find, you have a choice. You can look at the horrible part of it, or you can look at something good that can come from it. And so I focus on that, and that energizes me. I stay in an attitude of gratitude as much as I possibly can. The other part you mentioned about being fit, I will tell you that I love food, and I would rather have a little bit of something delicious than a whole lot of something that's a special diet. So when you see these recipes, you're going to think, oh, she doesn't eat that. Oh, yes, she does. All of those desserts, all of those yummy chicken dishes and soups. Oh, love soups and everything. I've got everything from soup to nuts and everything in between. But my secret to that is moderation.
Yeah.
Moderation. I say, this is how much I can have, and I stop. And it's not always easy to do that. But then I think about the investment in the clothing I have in my closet. I realize I need to push away from this table right now.
So I told my daughter, it's interesting you said that, because I told my daughter the other day, there was something she was eating, and she loves sweets and whatever, and she's eating it. She's like, I don't need to eat this whole thing. I said, well, you mentally, if you just tell yourself this is the last bite and it's all gone, it's the same as if it is, because it's not as if when you finish eating that last bite, you don't want more. There's just nothing left there to eat. So if you just tell yourself, okay, this is my last bite, there's not going to be anything left, you're still going to have that same craving you would if you eat the entire thing down to nothing.
I'm going to remember that, Mark. That's better than I explained it. That's right. I had not thought about that part. When I push away from the table, even if I had eaten more of that, I'd still want more.
That's what I was thinking the other day. I was eating something, and I was like, I could just eat more of this, but I don't have anything left. So then I thought, well, I'll just tell myself. So I'm trying to do that now, like with sweets and that kind of thing. Like I'll eat just a couple of bites and then go, okay, I got the taste, I got the flavor, I got everything I wanted out of this. I can stop now, because if I don't, I'll just eat the whole thing, and I'm still going to want more when it's gone. And at least this way, tomorrow I've got more.
I am going to, that's going into action in my brain now, from now on. Thank you, Mark. I will use that rather than kind of using my own behavior modification of like, no, you cannot have that because you can't zip your clothes. I'm going to use it.
I think it all depends on what you need. Some people that may be
my motivation was my clothing, but yours is really, that's workable. That's a good thing. I'm going to use that from now on.
Some people, the clothing thing might be more workable. Like, I want to get to
probably a combination of
those pants still. So I'm going to slow down a little bit.
Okay. Tell your daughter to make the best brownies ever in my book. She will like those.
I will tell her.
And Oreo cookie freeze. You will both like that. Oreo cookie freeze is my son's absolute favorite.
Yeah, recipe. I like them too. I like the sweet stuff too. But my daughter is my oldest is all into it. My youngest, she's got more discipline than anybody I've ever known in my life. So I don't know how. The other day she had some Nutter Butters, which she likes and I like. She goes, "You want these?" I was like, "Why don't you keep them?" Because it was a pack of 4. And she goes, "I'm trying to do better." And she just handed them to me. I was like, all right, well,
I'll take those.
Yeah, but she's the kid. She would get stuff on Christmas and wouldn't open half of it till June.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't.
I need her discipline. I'm not quite that good.
Yeah, I'm not.
That's no. If it's here, I'm going to eat it. I have trouble just completely giving it away. But like you said, I'll have more for tomorrow if I behave myself right
Yeah.
now.
There
But
you
again,
go.
there's some, you will like some of the recipes in there. As I was thinking about some of the just really funny things that I wrote about, I'll share with you one of my
Yeah.
craziest stories. Is my
Because I was
most
going to ask what that
moment,
was, what
my
maybe the
most
craziest thing. So yeah.
embarrassing moment. I was taking my son to a Hornets game, and they kindly gave me the tickets, and I sat down. We got there a little bit late. My son was probably about 9 then, and we got there a little bit late, and so I missed as they first began. But the man sitting next to me was so kind and so nice and kind of caught me up, and we just had this wonderful time just visiting. And I asked him his name. He told me, and I asked him where he was from, and he said, I was thinking he would say, like, somewhere like nearby, like Rock Hill or something. And he said, well, I'm from Nashville. And I said, oh, well, this is Tuesday night. Why did you come from Nashville to a Charlotte Hornets game? And he said, oh, I sang the national anthem. And I said, oh, wow, you must be really good, because that's a hard song to sing. And he just kind of shrugged and said, well, I enjoy singing. And here comes the embarrassing part, Mark. I began to tell him that I did a noontime talk show, and that maybe he could, maybe I could help him out, maybe get him on TV. And he was just so kind, and he went to the concession stand and brought back food for me, and we just had a wonderful time chatting. And halfway through the game, I saw some friends down ringside, and I said, oh, there's some really close friends. I need to run down there and say hello to them. If you'll just watch my coat and bag, and I'll be right back. And so I went down midside. It was halftime, and I went down midside and mid-court side, and my friend said, oh, why don't you sit here with us? And so Michael and I, my son, we just sat down with them for the rest of the game. And then we got up and we were talking and chatting. I said, oh my goodness, I left my coat and my bag with a stranger. Oh my goodness. And everybody had left because we'd stood there talking a long time. So I looked up, and there he stood with my big coat clutched in his arms and my bag hanging on his shoulder, and everybody in the Coliseum had gone. He was still standing there. So I went back up and I profusely thanked him and told him I was sorry that I had left him with my coat and bag for so long, and to remember that if I could ever do anything to help him, just let me know. So about a week later, I was watching the Country Music Awards with your host, Vince Gill. That was Vince Gill that was sitting next to me during all that time. I still cringe. And I found a friend of his and said, please tell him how embarrassed I am that I offered him a chance. A chance to show his talent. And his friend told me that Vince thought it was one of the funniest things ever, and that he was fine with all of that.
It's probably good. He was probably happy.
Yeah. I'm still horrified that I offered to help Vince Gill get a job. So
he was probably happy with it, that you weren't some psychotic fan who sat down beside him and then you started telling him how wonderful he is and how you love his music.
I was not that.
All that kind of stuff.
I was not that.
That's a great story.
Yeah, there are others, but that one, that was my most embarrassing, because I just cringe every time I hear him. Oh, I'm a huge fan now. I'm a huge fan. And every time I hear him, that comes back into my head of, oh my goodness. So I'm hoping he will have a book. I'm going to send him a book, and he can read again of my embarrassment.
Your embarrassment. Yeah. It's not the same level, but I have a friend of mine who, she didn't do that. She was the Vince Gill in the story. She had just made the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Oh.
And she was sitting at a coffee shop in LA, and some guy came up to her and told her how pretty she was and that she should be a model.
Oh, no. I was like, how did she handle that? So I'll know how.
She just said, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I said, I so wish you had had like that cover with you, and just said, thank you. And just kind of tapped onto it and let them.
Yes. Yes. Right. You think I could do this ever? Yes.
Yeah. But that Vince Gill story, that's great.
Oh, yes, like I said, there are more, but every time I hear him, it made me a very dedicated Vince Gill fan
I
now.
bet. How many pages is the book?
It's almost 300 pages.
Okay.
And again, I wanted it to be affordable,
Yeah.
beautiful. You made that part, Mark. You made the beautiful part. And I wanted it to be used. I wanted it to be a book. So many holiday books that you get or coffee table books, you look at them one time and they gather dust. I
Yeah.
wanted this to be something that people could keep going back to. And also, I wanted them to be energized by my sense of attitude of gratitude. I
Hmm.
wanted them to be inspired by the miracles that have happened in my life and to know that God is the final say, not the doctor or the people. And I wanted to make them smile. And I wanted them to have some really good recipes that they will get lots of compliments on and they can call them their own.
So how many stories do you have compared to recipes?
It's about half and half.
Yeah.
There are 127 recipes, and I divide them into early on, by farm to table time. And, some of my mother's best recipes. My mother was an amazing, amazing cook. And in Shelby, we didn't lock our doors. There was just somebody coming in our house to have some cake or to have some cookies or to have some soup or to have something every day. And she was known for being just the best cook ever. And so I kind of somehow I absorbed that, or my genetically had that inclination to love food. And then I move on to my TV years. And so the recipes that are most popular from then. And then I go on to what I did after the Daily Show. And I had a chance to I did a lot of media tours for food companies. And so I shared a lot of recipes at that time too. And then I did the books and the magazines. And then the last part is living my best life. And those recipes are some from friends and my children now who are very
Really?
good at this. And I just close it out with that. So they're all favorites, somebody's favorites, either my
Yeah.
mother's or mine or my children or my friends. And they are tried and true favorites. So it's mainly a cookbook. So the reflections, I just lead into reflections of that era and
Okay.
things, the people that I interviewed and the stories. I will close with one of the more fascinating things in my life that I'm very grateful for. Uh, I was asked by a furniture company in North Carolina and Virginia if I would be interested in helping Charles Spencer, Princess Diana's brother, promote his furniture line.
Really?
He and Diana grew up in a mansion, a manor, a huge estate in England called Althorpe. And so Charles decided to have reproductions made of the furniture at Althorpe.
Oh, wow.
And a furniture company in North Carolina and Virginia are the ones who made these absolutely breathtaking reproductions. So they thought when he toured the United States that maybe it would be good to have a facilitator, a communicator there to introduce him and to take questions for him and to just kind of make it easier for him as he went around doing this. Well, I was expecting the royalty that he is, and I wasn't sure what he was going to be like, but he was so extraordinary and so funny and so much like someone that I had known forever.
Oh, wow.
And we became really good friends. And I visited there and he visited here. And we still stay in touch. This was 20 years ago. We still stay in touch. So about 3 years ago, my son gave me ancestry.com
Yeah.
for Mother's Day. So I started doing that. And, you can see all the birth certificates and death certificates and all the documentation for your entire family tree. So all of a sudden, I was doing this, and there was a Spencer, as in Charles and Diana. And I could hardly believe that, oh my goodness, Charles and I might be related. No wonder we got along so well. No wonder we had so much fun together and kind of understood each other. And so before I called him, I went back and forth through the lines to make sure I did not make any mistake with any birth certificates or
Right.
anything. And then I got in touch with him and I said, are you related to? And I gave him a few relatives around Spencer and then the Spencer. And he said, well, hello, cousin. So we are actually distantly related and have had so much fun with that. And he said, you know, what's even more amazing about that, Barbara, is that I have a book coming out in September. This was 3 years ago, but he said, I have a book coming out in September and it's about our mutual cousin, the one that was in America that linked to the Spencer in England. And I said, oh, I will look for the book. What is it? And he said, Killer of the Kings. And I said, wait, we have a murderer in our family? No, it's just a figure of speech. It's interesting, but it's true. And it's about our relatives. So it's crazy. You know, as I said, there are signs along the way. There is order out there. And the fact that all those centuries ago, we had a mutual relative, and then now we would meet each other and work together, as unlikely as that was, and even more unlikely that we would get along so well and really respect and become such close friends. So
that's a great story. Wow, you got some really cool stories.
Well, I've been, and like I said, I've been very blessed, and I've lived a lot of decades now, Mark. Thank you for the number.
Where can people find the book? Where can you buy the book?
Thank you for asking that. Barbara McKay, and that's with a K, BarbaraMcKay.com, and they can order it there. It is also available if you're in the Charlotte area at Paper Skyscraper on East Boulevard. Yeah, that's a very cool store. They were named the #1 gift shop in the United States.
Really?
Right there on East Boulevard. Yes, the people are wonderful. They know just what to buy. And I'm so happy that they decided to carry my book. And then if you're in the Cleveland County or Shelby area, it can be found at Victoria Stevens, not Victoria's Secrets. They don't have one of those, Shelby. Victoria Stevens in Uptown Shelby. And then the book has just been out a couple of weeks, so I haven't gotten around to any other stores yet, but if they would like to contact me, I'll be glad to talk to them about having some other retail locations. But it's so easy now, BarbieMcKay.com. And if they want me to sign it, just put a little note in there, special instructions.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have one question. There's a little tiny chair back there behind you.
Oh, wow. And you can see that?
Yeah. Who's that for?
Mark. I love my grandfather gave me that chair when I was one.
Really?
One on my first birthday. That little rocker. Yeah. So again, here we go. We're not going to talk about how many decades old it is. It's very, very old. And you saw it back there.
Yeah, it looks great.
But it goes with my life. So it doesn't go with anything in the house, but it goes with my life. So it's going to be here.
Hey, that's all right.
And you noticed that you have such a good eye. That's so amazing. That is so amazing. And I'm looking at all the photography around you, which is
there's a little bit
also amazing because you are amazing.
The weirdest thing is these things in frames up here, they're all shot, like these two were shot with my iPhone when I was in Budapest. Because I went on a walk and left my camera in my apartment. And just had I thought I was just going to walk down the street for a little bit. I ended up walking around for like 3 hours or something. So I ended up shooting everything with my iPhone.
Well, you just did an ad for iPhone. You need to send this to them.
They need to send
you just did an ad. It again, when you have talent like yours, it ends up like that with an iPhone or anything else.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I like to say when people go, what kind of camera do you have? It's like, that's kind of like going, this is great food. What kind of oven did you cook it with?
Right.
You know, it's kind of like that, the oven.
Yeah.
It helps, but it's not going to determine how good the food is.
No. Well, you are tremendously talented. I started to say every day, but it's many times every day I am asked, who did your cover? Who did that? So yes, your name. Yes, your name is said every day, many, many times. So I thank you.
Well, Barbara, thank you for doing this. This was great.
fun. This was fun. I'm glad we got to visit again.
Yeah, me
Let's do it
too.
again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoyed it a
And I need a
lot.
picture. You'll be hearing from me.
Yeah, you let me know and we'll take care of it. And my
Thank you.
father-in-law is finally going to have some respect and love for me. When I tell him I talked to you. So
Let me sign a book for him. I need to sign a book for him.
oh, he would, yeah, he is a huge fan. I think my wife
Thank
told him he couldn't believe it. So yeah. Because he's always,
I
before
love
we got
him.
married, he thought I was an international playboy
Oh,
for whatever reason.
is that true?
He has gotten better over the years. I did a shoot at his house and he finally saw what I did. And he said, I worked very hard. The bad thing was he was telling it to his son who owned who took over his masonry company and just come back from laying brick for the last 10 hours. And was
Wow.
telling him how hard I worked that day. I was like, let's not talk about that.
The crafts people like that, artisans like that are so needed now.
Yeah.
Such an important skill, such an important art. So, and you please tell your father that I wouldn't have had a job all these decades if it had not been for wonderful people like him. And I mean that with all my heart. He is the one who kept me in a job. So thank him, please.
I'll let him know. It's probably his wife because he was out working, but he still liked seeing you as much as he could.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara. I really
Mark,
appreciate
it was wonderful.
This was great.
It was wonderful. All right. Thanks. Call me anytime.
I will. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.